You know those moments when a tiny hand grabs onto something and suddenly everything you thought you knew just falls apart? That's exactly what happened when a little girl decided she wasn't letting go of the most dangerous man in the city. And honestly, the reason behind it all will absolutely wreck you. Before we jump in, just hit that subscribe button real quick, because trust me, you'll want more stories like this one. Juliet pressed her daughter's small hand tighter as they walked past the tall building where she cleaned floors every night. The little girl, Melanie, barely 3 years old, kept pulling toward the glass doors like something inside was calling her name. "Mama, the nice man," Melanie whispered, her eyes wide and searching. Juliet's stomach dropped. There was no nice man in that building. Only Moonji Choi, the man whose name made grown men look away. The man whose office she cleaned in complete silence because even the walls seemed afraid of him. But Melanie had seen him last week when Juliet's babysitter canceled. Just once. Just for 10 minutes while Juliet emptied his trash bins and wiped down his desk. He hadn't even looked up from his computer. Yet now, every single day, Melanie asked about him. "We need to go home, baby," Juliet said, practically dragging her daughter down the street. Her cleaning cart rattled beside them, full of supplies that barely paid their rent. Melanie started crying. Not the fake kind that kids do when they want candy. The real kind that made Juliet's chest ache because her daughter never cried like this. "I need to see him, Mama. Please. He's sad like me." Juliet stopped walking. Her hands went cold despite the warm evening air. "What do you mean, sad like you?" But Melanie just kept crying, her little face turning red as she reached back toward the building. 3 days later, Juliet had no choice. Her babysitter's phone was disconnected and rent was due in 48 hours. She needed this job. So she brought Melanie again, hoping the child would sleep in the storage closet like last time. Except Melanie didn't sleep. The moment they stepped off the elevator on the 20th floor, the little girl took off running. Her tiny feet slapped against the tile as she headed straight for the corner office with a frosted glass door. Melanie, no. Juliet dropped her supplies and ran, but 3-year-olds were surprisingly fast when they wanted something. Melanie pushed open the door that should have been locked. Should have been impossible for a child to open. But there she was, walking right into Moonji Choi's office like she owned the place. Juliet burst in behind her, ready to apologize, ready to beg for her job, ready for anything except what she saw. Moonji was on his knees. This man who controlled half the city's underground business was kneeling on his expensive rug, eye level with Melanie, and he was crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears running down his face while Melanie patted his cheek with her small hand. "It's okay," Melanie said softly. "I lost my daddy too." Juliet couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what her daughter just said because Melanie's father wasn't dead. He'd just left them. Walked away before Melanie was even born. Moonji's dark eyes met Juliet's across the room, and something in them made her knees weak. Pain. So much pain it felt like drowning just looking at him. How did she know? His voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. "Know what?" Juliet managed to ask. "My daughter died 3 months ago. She was 4. He looked back at Melanie, who was now holding his hand like they were old friends. "How did your child know?" Juliet opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because how could Melanie know? How could a 3-year-old possibly understand something like that? "She feels things," Juliet finally said, because it was the only truth she had. Ever since she was born, she just knows when people are hurting. Melanie climbed onto Moonji's lap, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. "You smell like rain," she told him. "My daddy smelled like rain too," before he went away. Moonji's arms came around her automatically, like muscle memory from holding his own daughter. His face crumpled, and Juliet realized she was witnessing something nobody else probably ever saw. This dangerous man completely broken. "I'm so sorry," Juliet whispered, backing toward the door. "We'll leave. I'll resign. Just please don't. Don't go." The word stopped her mid-step. Moonji stood up, still holding Melanie, who had her head on his shoulder now. "What's your name?" "Juliet. And this is Melanie." "Mr. Choi, I really didn't mean for her to bother you." "She's not bothering me," He looked down at the child in his arms, and something shifted in his expression. Something that looked almost like hope. Can I ask you something strange? Juliet nodded, because what else could she do? Would you let her visit me? Sometimes? I'll pay you. Whatever you need. His voice cracked. I just need to remember what this feels like. Having a child trust me again. Every logical part of Juliet's brain screamed no. This was Moonji Choi, the man people whispered about in dark alleys. The man whose business rivals disappeared without a trace. But the broken father in front of her wasn't that man. Not right now, anyway. Okay, she heard herself say. But I stay with her. Every time. Of course. He nodded quickly, like he was afraid she'd change her mind. Every time. I wouldn't. I'd never hurt her. Or you. Milani yawned and snuggled closer to him. Can you read me a story? Mama's too tired at night. Moonji's whole face changed. For just a second, Juliet saw him smile. Really smile. Yeah, I can do that. That's how it started. 3 nights a week, after Juliet finished cleaning, they'd go to Moonji's office. He'd read to Milani while Juliet organized files or folded his laundry, tasks he started giving her that paid triple her cleaning wage. At first, Juliet watched him like a hawk, waiting for the monster everyone talked about to appear. But week after week, all she saw was a man who'd lost everything learning how to breathe again because a little girl held his hand. Why does everyone say you're scary? Milani asked one night, completely out of nowhere. Moonji paused mid-sentence in the storybook. He glanced at Juliet, who pretended to be very interested in alphabetizing his bookshelf. Because I made a lot of mistakes, he said carefully. Sometimes when people are hurt, they hurt others. I did that. I'm not proud of it. But you're not hurting now, Milani said matter-of-factly. You're just sad. Yeah, baby. I'm just sad. Milani patted his face again, that gesture that had become her signature move with him. It's okay to be sad. Mama cries in the bathroom sometimes. She thinks I don't hear, but I do. Juliet's hands stilled on the books. She felt Moonji's eyes on her, but couldn't bring herself to turn around. Why does your mama cry? He asked Milani gently. Because we don't have enough money for my medicine sometimes. And because she works all the time, and her back hurts. And because my daddy left us. Milani, Juliet said sharply, finally turning around. That's enough. But Moonji was already standing, carefully setting Milani on his chair. He walked over to Juliet, and she realized this was the closest they'd ever been. Close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough to smell his cologne. Something clean and simple, not like she'd expected. What medicine? He asked. It's not your concern. Juliet. He said her name like it mattered. What medicine? She wanted to lie, wanted to tell him everything was fine. But Milani's prescription was sitting unfilled at the pharmacy because Juliet had to choose between that and their electric bill this month. Asthma, she admitted quietly. She has asthma, but we're managing. No. He shook his head. No, you're not managing. You're drowning. I see it every time you walk in here, trying to pretend you're not exhausted. I don't need your pity. Good, because I'm not offering it. He pulled out his phone. Type something quickly. I'm offering help. There's a difference. I can't accept. Why not? He looked genuinely confused. You've given me something I thought I'd never have again. Let me give you something back. Please. The please did it. Because men like Moonji Choi didn't say please. They commanded. They demanded. But he was asking, and something about that made Juliet's defenses crack just a little. Just the medicine, she said finally. Nothing else. He nodded, but she could see in his eyes that this wasn't over. 2 days later, Juliet found an envelope under her cleaning cart. Inside was enough money to cover 3 months of Milani's prescriptions, plus their rent, plus more than she made in half a year. She marched straight to his office, envelope in hand, ready for a fight. Moonji was on the phone, speaking rapid Korean that sounded aggressive and cold. But the moment he saw her face, he said something quick and hung up. I said just the medicine, Juliet said, throwing the envelope on his desk. And I gave you enough for the medicine. This is enough for the medicine and peace of mind. He stood up, came around the desk. Juliet, when's the last time you weren't worried about money? Just for one day. She couldn't remember. Couldn't even imagine it. Milani is teaching me how to be human again, Moonji continued, his voice dropping lower. Do you have any idea how valuable that is? How much therapy costs that doesn't work? How many medications I've taken that did nothing? That little girl walks in here, and suddenly I can sleep at night. Suddenly I remember what it feels like to want to wake up in the morning. So no, this isn't charity. This is payment for services rendered. She's 3 years old. She's not rendering services. She's giving me a reason to live. The rawness in his voice made Juliet step back. So please, take the money. Let me do this one thing that isn't terrible. Juliet looked at the envelope, then at him, then at the photo on his desk she'd noticed weeks ago but never asked about. A little girl with his eyes and someone else's smile. What was her name? Juliet asked quietly. Your daughter? Moonji's jaw tightened. Minji. Her name was Minji. How did she? Juliet trailed off, not sure if she should ask. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. He sat down heavily in his chair, suddenly looking much older than his 32 years. My wife was driving. She died instantly. Minji held on for 3 days in the hospital. And then, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. I'm so sorry. Everyone's sorry. But sorry doesn't bring them back. Sorry doesn't change the fact that I was supposed to be in that car. I was supposed to drive them to her dance recital, but I had a meeting. A meeting. He laughed bitterly. I chose business over my family, and they died because of it. Juliet sat down in the chair across from him, without being invited. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? If I'd been there, you'd probably be dead too. Or maybe the accident would have happened anyway, just with you in it. She leaned forward. I know about guilt, Moonji. I know about blame. I blamed myself for Milani's father leaving. Thought if I'd been prettier, smarter, better somehow, he would have stayed. But some things just happen. They're not her fault. Do you really believe that? I'm trying to. She smiled sadly. Same as you're trying, probably. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the city lights flickered on as evening settled in. Somewhere down the hall, a vacuum cleaner hummed. Keep the money, Moonji said finally. And maybe I could take you and Milani to dinner sometime? Somewhere Milani would like. I haven't been to a place like that since Minji. Something in Juliet's chest shifted. Warmed. Probably a terrible idea, but she found herself nodding anyway. Okay. But nowhere fancy. Milani's a picky eater. I know a place. His smile was small but genuine. Minji loved it. Best pancakes in the city, and yes, they serve breakfast for dinner. That Saturday, Juliet dressed Milani in her least worn dress and tried not to think about how this felt suspiciously like a date. It wasn't a date. Just a thank you dinner. Just 3 people sharing a meal. Except Moonji showed up at their tiny apartment in jeans and a regular shirt instead of his usual formal wear, and he brought Milani a stuffed bunny that made her squeal with joy, and he looked at Juliet like she was wearing something far nicer than her clearance rack blouse. You look nice, he said, stumbling over the words like he'd forgotten how to give compliments. You look different, Juliet replied. Almost normal. He laughed. Actually laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. The restaurant was small and bright, and filled with families. Milani loved it immediately, climbing into the booth and demanding to sit next to Moonji. Someone's got a favorite, Juliet teased, sliding in across from them. Can't imagine why, Moonji said, but his eyes were soft as Milani chattered about her stuffed bunny, already named Rainbow, apparently. They ordered too much food. Pancakes and waffles and French toast and eggs. Milani got syrup everywhere and Moonji didn't even flinch when she accidentally smeared some on his shirt. Minji did the same thing once, he said quietly, wiping at the spot. Covered me in maple syrup head to toe at her 2nd birthday party. You miss her, Juliet said. Not a question. Every second of every day. He looked at Milani, who was now making her bunny dance across the table. But this helps. Being here, remembering that life goes on, even when you don't want it to. She'd want you to be happy probably. I don't know if I remember how to be happy. Not really. Juliet reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Just once. Just for a second. But the way his fingers tightened around hers before she pulled away made her think maybe they were both figuring things out together. After dinner, they walked through the park even though it was getting dark. Milani ran ahead, chasing pigeons and laughing in that pure way only kids could. "I need to tell you something," Moonji said as they walked. Juliet's stomach tightened. Here it comes, she thought. The catch. The thing that would ruin this nice evening. "I'm leaving the business," he continued. "The other business. The one people whisper about." "You don't have to explain." "Yes, I do. Because I don't want secrets between us, and because you deserve to know what kind of man is spending time with your daughter." He stopped walking, turned to face her. "After Minji and my wife died, I stopped caring about consequences. I made decisions that hurt people, built an empire on things I'm not proud of. But lately I've been thinking about what Minji would say if she could see me now. And I don't think she'd be proud." "So you're getting out?" "Trying to. It's not easy. Men like me don't just walk away. But I'm working on it." He paused. "I wanted you to know. In case you decide you don't want Milani around me anymore. I'd understand." Juliet watched her daughter, still chasing birds in the fading light. "Everyone has a past, Moonji. What matters is what you do now. And right now, you're making my daughter happier than I've seen her in months. You're trying to be better. That counts for something." "You really believe that?" "I really do." His smile was like sunrise, slow and warm and full of promise. But promises, Juliet would learn, were fragile things. The trouble started 3 weeks later when Juliet noticed a black car following them home from the grocery store. Then another one parked outside their apartment building. Then strange men in dark suits asking their neighbors questions about the African woman and her child. Juliet didn't tell Moonji at first. Didn't want to worry him when he was already dealing with so much. But when Milani mentioned that a mean man tried to talk to her at daycare, Juliet's maternal instincts overrode everything else. She called Moonji from a payphone because suddenly her cell felt unsafe. "We need to talk." He was at her apartment in 15 minutes, which should have been impossible given traffic. His face was tight with worry as she explained everything. "They're sending a message," he said, pacing her tiny living room. "My competitors. They know I'm trying to leave and they're not happy about it. Why would they care about us?" Moonji stopped pacing, looked at her with something like dread. "Because I've been seen with you, with Milani, and in my world, that makes you leverage." Juliet's blood went cold. "We need to stay away from you then. If being around you puts Milani in danger." "No." He shook his head firmly. "No, that's not happening. You and Milani are the only good things in my life right now. I'm not losing you too." "This isn't about what you want to lose," Juliet said, her voice rising. "This is about keeping my daughter safe. And I will keep her safe. Both of you. I promise." "Your promises don't stop cars from following us. Your promises don't. I'll fix this." Moonji grabbed her shoulders gently. "Juliet, I swear to you I'll fix this. Just trust me. Please." She wanted to pull away, wanted to grab Milani and run somewhere he'd never find them. But the desperation in his eyes held her in place. "1 week," she said. "Fix it in 1 week or we disappear." "I mean it." He nodded. 1 week. That night, Moonji didn't sleep. He made calls, attended meetings, called in every favor he'd ever earned. His old partners weren't happy when he announced his official retirement from their organization, but they understood the language of money and power. He gave them most of his territory, most of his assets, everything except what he needed to live comfortably. "You're doing this for a woman?" his former business partner asked, incredulous. "Some cleaning lady you barely know?" "I'm doing this for me," Moonji corrected. "The woman and her daughter are just the reason I finally woke up." By day 6, the black cars disappeared. The strange men stopped asking questions. Moonji's contacts confirmed that he was out, officially and completely. He showed up at Juliet's apartment with documentation proving it. Contracts, transfers, everything legally binding. "It's done," he said, looking exhausted but relieved. "You're safe. Milani's safe. They have no reason to bother you anymore." Juliet read through the papers, hardly believing what she was seeing. You gave up everything. No, I gave up things. There's a difference. He sat down on her worn couch. Everything that matters is right here. We're not your responsibility. Maybe not, but you're my choice. If you'll let me be. Something in the way he said it made Juliet's heart skip. What are you asking? I'm asking if I can keep taking you to breakfast for dinner places. If I can keep reading to Milani before bed. If I can keep being part of your lives. Officially. No more pretending it's just about me being lonely or you needing money. Something real. Milani chose that moment to wander in from her bedroom, dragging Rainbow behind her. Are you staying for stories? She asked Moonji sleepily. If your mama says it's okay. Milani looked at Juliet with those big eyes that never missed anything. He makes you smile, mama. You should let him stay. Out of the mouths of children, Juliet thought. Yeah, okay. You can stay. The smile on Moonji's face could have lit up the whole city. Over the next few months, they built something neither of them expected. Not a perfect family, but a real one. Moonji learned to braid Milani's hair after watching 6 tutorial videos. Juliet taught him how to make her mother's recipe for stew that made Milani request seconds. They went to parks and museums and once, memorably, to a children's concert where Milani danced until she fell asleep on Moonji's shoulder. Juliet's friends were skeptical at first. A man like Moonji Choi dating a woman like her? But they saw how he looked at her, like she'd hung the moon and stars, and slowly, they came around. You're good for him, Moonji's cousin said one day when she stopped by with food. I haven't seen him this alive since before the accident. He's good for us too, Juliet admitted. Because it was true. Moonji had enrolled Milani in a better daycare, found Juliet a job at his legitimate tech company that paid actual living wages, and more importantly, he'd shown both of them what stability felt like. But the best part wasn't the money or the security. It was the little moments. Moonji teaching Milani to count in Korean. Juliet falling asleep during movie nights and waking up with a blanket tucked around her. The three of them cooking dinner together in Moonji's much larger apartment that was slowly filling with Milani's drawings and toys. I want to introduce you to someone, Moonji said one evening after Milani had gone to bed. Juliet looked up from the dishes. Who? My parents. They want to meet the woman who brought me back to life. And the little girl who saved me. Juliet's hands stilled in the soapy water. Your parents. The ones who probably expected you to marry someone Korean and successful and... The ones who just want me to be happy, Moonji interrupted gently. And you make me happy. So does Milani. That's all that matters to them. What if they don't like me? Impossible. He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. You're brilliant and strong and beautiful. What's not to like? I'm a single mother who cleans offices for a living. Well, used to clean offices. You're a woman who worked 3 jobs to provide for her daughter, who taught herself English by watching television, who never gave up even when things were impossible. My parents will love you. He was right. Moonji's parents were warm and welcoming, if a little surprised. His mother hugged Juliet tightly and whispered, "Thank you for bringing light back to our son's eyes." His father spent the whole dinner playing with Milani, who charmed him completely by attempting to speak Korean with her 3-year-old pronunciation. She has a gift, Moonji's mother said, watching Milani. My grandson's grandmother. She could feel things too. Emotions, pain, joy. She always knew when someone needed help. Milani's been like that since birth, Juliet said. Sometimes it's wonderful. Sometimes it's exhausting for her. It's a blessing and a burden, the older woman agreed. But with the right guidance, it becomes a superpower. After dinner, Moonji's father pulled him aside. Juliet tried not to eavesdrop, but couldn't help overhearing some of it. She's nothing like we expected, his father said. I know, but she's everything you need. We can see that. I want to marry her, Dad. Eventually, when she's ready. Juliet's heart stopped. Marriage? They'd only been together for a few months. But then again, when you knew, you knew. Except life had taught Juliet that knowing wasn't enough. The problem appeared in the form of Milani's biological father, Marcus, who showed up at their door one random Tuesday with a new haircut and empty apologies. I want to meet my daughter, he said, like he had any right. You walked away before she was born, Juliet said coldly. You have no daughter. I made mistakes. I want to fix them. For years too late. But Marcus was persistent. He started showing up at Milani's daycare, at the park, outside Juliet's work. Never threatening, just there. A constant reminder that maybe Milani deserved to know her biological father. Juliet didn't tell Moonji at first. Didn't want to burden him with more problems. But Milani, perceptive as always, mentioned this sad man who says he's my daddy during story time one night. Moonji's whole body went rigid. What's sad man? It's nothing, Juliet tried to say. Juliet.
What? Sad.
Man. So she told him everything. About Marcus showing up, about his claims of wanting to be a father, about how conflicted she felt because maybe Milani did deserve a chance to know where she came from. He abandoned you, Moonji said flatly. He doesn't get to waltz back in now. I know, but nothing. I'm her father.
Me.
I'm the one who reads her stories and braids her hair and takes her to the doctor. I'm the one who loves her. You're not legally her father. The words came out harsher than Juliet intended. She watched something break in Moonji's expression. Right, he said quietly. Of course. I'm not. I'm just some guy who's been playing pretend family. That's not what I meant. I need some air. He left, and Juliet wanted to go after him, but Milani was crying now, confused about why Moonji seemed upset. For 3 days, Moonji didn't call. He didn't text, neither did he show up for story time. Milani kept asking where he was, and Juliet had no good answers. On day 4, Marcus showed up with legal papers. A petition for paternity testing and potential custody. I have rights, he said. I looked into it. And if you fight me, I'll make sure everyone knows about your boyfriend's past. The illegal business. The people he hurt. I'll make sure he never gets anywhere near my daughter. Juliet felt sick. You can't. I can.
And I will.
Unless you agree to let me be part of Milani's life. 50-50 custody. Legally binding. She doesn't even know you.
She will.
That's the point. Juliet looked at this man who'd left her when she needed him most and realized he didn't actually want Milani. He wanted power. Control. Maybe revenge for Juliet moving on with her life. Get out, she said. You'll regret this. I already regret ever meeting you. Now leave before I call the police. He left, but the damage was done. The legal papers were real. And Juliet knew enough about family court to know that biological fathers had rights, even terrible ones. She called Moonji. He didn't answer. She called again. Nothing. Finally, she showed up at his apartment and pounded on the door until he opened it. He looked awful. Like he hadn't slept in days. I need your help, Juliet said. Marcus is suing for custody and threatening to expose your past if I fight him, and I don't know what to do. Moonji's jaw tightened. Let him expose me. I don't care. I care. Milani cares. She loves you. Does she? Or does she just like the presence and the attention? Don't do that. Don't pretend what we have isn't real because you're hurt. I'm not hurt, but his voice cracked. I'm terrified, Juliet. I'm terrified that one day you'll realize I'm not actually Milani's father, and I'll lose both of you. Just like I lost Minji. Just like I lose everyone I love. Juliet's anger dissolved. She stepped forward and cupped his face in her hands. You're not going to lose us. But I need you to fight for us, Moonji. Really fight. Not just walk away because you're scared. I don't know how to fight something like biology. Then we'll figure it out together. Moonji hired the best family lawyer in the city. A woman who'd built her reputation on reuniting families and protecting children from parents who didn't deserve them. Marcus hasn't paid a single month of child support, she said, reviewing the case. He has no relationship with Milani. This is going to be difficult for him to prove he deserves custody. But he's her biological father, Juliet said. Biology isn't everything. The courts care about what's best for the child. And from what I've seen, what's best for Milani is staying with you and Mr. Choi. We're not married. Not yet, Moonji said quietly. Juliet turned to stare at him. What? Not yet, he repeated, looking at her with complete certainty. But we will be, if you'll have me. Because I meant what I said. I'm her father in every way that counts. And I'm not letting Marcus or anyone else take that away from us. The lawyer smiled. Well, a stable two-parent household certainly wouldn't hurt your case. This isn't about the case, Moonji said, still looking at Juliet. This is about me being tired of pretending I don't want forever with you. Both of you. Juliet's eyes filled with tears. You're really asking me this now? In a lawyer's office? During a custody battle? I'm asking you this now because life is short and unpredictable, and I've already wasted too much time being afraid.
So yes, I'm asking.
Will you marry me? You don't even have a ring. He pulled one from his pocket. Small, simple, perfect. I've been carrying this for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Turns out there's no right moment. Just now. Yes, Juliet whispered. Yes, obviously yes. The lawyer cleared her throat. While this is very sweet, we should probably discuss the actual legal strategy. They spent the next hour going over every detail. Character witnesses, documentation of Moonji's involvement in Milani's life, proof of Marcus's abandonment. It was exhausting and overwhelming and scary. But they had each other. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. In that time, Marcus tried everything. He showed up at Milani's daycare again, only to be turned away by security Moonji had hired. He sent threatening messages to Juliet's phone until she blocked his number. He even tried to contact Moonji's business partners, looking for dirt to use against them. He's desperate, the lawyer said. That's actually good for us. Desperate people make mistakes. Marcus's mistake came in the form of a social media post. A picture of him at a party, clearly intoxicated, with a caption joking about finally getting that child support money. Screenshot that, the lawyer said immediately. That's gold. The day of the court hearing, Juliet wore her best dress and held Moonji's hand so tightly her fingers went numb. Milani was with Moonji's parents, blissfully unaware of the battle being fought over her future. Marcus showed up in a suit that didn't quite fit, with a lawyer who looked fresh out of law school. He didn't make eye contact with Juliet. The judge was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She listened as Marcus's lawyer argued that biological fathers had rights, that Marcus had simply needed time to mature, that he was ready to be a parent now. Then Juliet's lawyer presented their case. 4 years of documented abandonment. 0 child support payments. Multiple witnesses testifying to Moonji's involvement in Milani's life. Screenshots of Marcus's concerning social media posts. A letter from Milani's pediatrician stating that the child was thriving in her current environment. And then the final piece. Your Honor, I'd like to submit a statement from Milani herself. Obviously, at 3 years old, she didn't write it. But her daycare teacher documented a conversation they had last week when Milani drew a picture of her family. The lawyer held up a child's drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. One labeled Mama, one labeled Papa Moonji, and one labeled me. When asked if anyone was missing from the picture, Milani said no. When asked about her daddy, she pointed to the figure labeled Papa Moonji. At 3 years old, this child knows exactly who her family is. The judge studied the drawing for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus. Mr. Patterson, can you tell me what Milani's favorite color is? Marcus hesitated. Blue. It's yellow, Juliet said quietly. She's obsessed with yellow. Can you tell me what she's allergic to? The judge continued. I don't know. Strawberries. She breaks out in hives. The judge set down her papers. Can you tell me the name of her stuffed animal? Silence. Rainbow, Moonji said. A bunny named Rainbow that she takes everywhere. The judge nodded slowly. Mr. Patterson, I understand that biology creates certain connections. But fatherhood isn't about DNA. It's about showing up. It's about knowing your child's favorite color and their allergies, and the name of their stuffed animal. It's about being there day after day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I want to be there now. 4 years too late. And based on your social media activity and lack of stable employment, I'm not convinced you're seeking custody for the right reasons. She looked at her notes again. I'm denying your petition for custody. Furthermore, I'm granting Ms. Juliet full legal custody with no visitation rights for you until such time as you can demonstrate genuine change and stability. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Juliet burst into tears. Moonji pulled her into his arms, and for a moment, They just held each other while Marcus stormed out of the courtroom with his lawyer trailing behind. "It's over," Juliet whispered against Moonji's chest. "It's really over." "Not over," Moonji corrected gently. "Just beginning." They went straight from the courthouse to pick up Milani. The little girl launched herself at Moonji the moment she saw him. "Papa Moonji, did you win?" He looked at Juliet, who nodded. "Yeah, baby. We won." "Good. Can we get ice cream now?" They got ice cream
And pizza.
and went to the park even though it was getting late. Because sometimes you needed to celebrate the big moments, even if they came wrapped in trauma and fear. That night, after Milani fell asleep between them during a movie, Moonji carried her to bed and tucked her in carefully. "I want to adopt her," he said when he came back to the living room. "Officially. Legally. If you're okay with that." Juliet's heart swelled. She'd love that. Having your last name. Being officially yours. "She's already mine. Has been since the moment she walked into my office and patted my face. But yeah, making it legal would be nice." They started the adoption process the following week. More paperwork, more court dates, but these ones felt different. Hopeful instead of scary. 3 months later, Milani became Milani Choi in the eyes of the law. She didn't really understand what it meant, but she loved the party they threw to celebrate and the cake that was shaped like Rainbow the Bunny. "We're a real family now," she announced to anyone who would listen. "I have a mama and a papa and everything." "You always had everything," Moonji told her. "We just made it official." 2 months after that, Juliet and Moonji got married in a small ceremony at the park where they'd had their first real conversation. Milani was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, scattering petals with intense concentration. Moonji's vows made everyone cry. "I thought I'd lost my chance at family when Minji died. I thought happiness was something in my past, not my future. But then a 3-year-old girl decided I needed her, and her mother decided I was worth a chance, and suddenly, I had everything again. Juliet, you and Milani saved my life. I promise to spend the rest of mine making sure you know how loved you are." Juliet's vows were simpler. "I promise to let you braid Milani's hair, even though you're still learning. I promise to make your favorite stew when you've had bad days. I promise to build this life with you one day at a time, for as long as we both live." They kissed while Milani made gagging noises that had everyone laughing. The reception was small but perfect. Moonji's parents welcomed Juliet's friends like they'd known them for years. Milani danced until her fancy shoes hurt and then danced barefoot. Someone made a speech about how love shows up in unexpected places. Late in the evening, Moonji found Juliet standing alone on the edge of the dance floor, watching Milani twirl with his mother. "Happy?" he asked, slipping his arm around her waist. "Impossibly happy. Which kind of scares me, honestly." "Why?" "Because I keep waiting for something to go wrong. For this to be too good to be true." "It's not too good to be true. It's just true. Good and messy and real." He kissed her temple. "We're going to fight sometimes. Have bad days. Deal with hard things. But we'll do it together." "Together," Juliet echoed, liking the sound of it. Milani ran over, breathless and grinning. "Can we go home now? My feet hurt, and I want Papa to read me a story." "Which story?" Moonji asked, scooping her up. "The one about the princess who saved herself." "That's your favorite." "Yeah, because Mama says that's what she did. Before you came and helped." Moonji looked at Juliet over Milani's head. "Your mama is definitely the princess in this story. I'm just the lucky guy who got to be part of her happily ever after." "What does that make me?" Milani asked. "The reason we all found each other," Juliet said, reaching over to smooth her daughter's hair. "The little girl who saw someone hurting and decided to help, even though you were just a baby." "I'm not a baby anymore." "No, you're not. You're our whole world." They went home, to Moonji's apartment that had officially become their apartment now. Juliet changed out of her wedding dress, while Moonji read Milani her story. By the time she came out in comfortable clothes, they were both asleep on Milani's bed, the storybook still open between them. Juliet stood in the doorway and let herself feel it all. The gratitude, the love, the sheer impossibility of how a 3-year-old's instinct to comfort a stranger had led to this. She thought about the title of the story, about a maid's toddler stalking a Mafia don, about how people would probably never understand what really happened unless they knew the truth. The truth was simpler than anyone expected. A little girl felt someone's pain and refused to ignore it. A broken man learned how to hope again. A single mother discovered that family could look different than she'd imagined and still be exactly right. No violence. No grand revenge. No dramatic chases or last-minute rescues. Just three people who needed each other, finding their way to wholeness one day at a time. Life settled into a rhythm that felt almost too perfect. Moonji got a job at a consulting firm helping other people exit from dangerous business situations, using his past to create better futures for others. Juliet finished her degree online and started working as a social worker, helping families like hers navigate the system. Melanie thrived. She started kindergarten and immediately became everyone's favorite because she could sense when kids were sad or scared and would sit with them until they felt better. She's going to be a therapist someday, her teacher said during parent conferences. Or maybe a counselor. She has such a gift for emotional intelligence. She got that from her mama, Moonji said, squeezing Juliet's hand. But gifts came with complications. Melanie's empathy meant she absorbed everyone's emotions, which led to meltdowns when she got overwhelmed. School days were exhausting for her. She'd come home and cry for an hour, unable to explain why except that she felt too much. Juliet and Moonji worked with a child psychologist who specialized in sensitive children. They learned techniques to help Melanie process emotions without being consumed by them. Created quiet spaces where she could decompress. Taught her that feeling things deeply was a superpower, not a weakness. It gets easier, the psychologist promised. As she gets older, she'll learn to manage it better. And she did. Slowly but surely, Melanie learned to recognize when emotions were hers versus someone else's. Learned to create boundaries. Learned that she could help people without drowning in their feelings. By the time she was 7, Melanie had a best friend named Keiko who thought her emotional radar was basically magic. The two of them were inseparable, always making up games where Melanie was a superhero who could sense danger through feelings. You know this is just going to make her more powerful when she's older, right? Moonji said, watching the girls play through the window. I know. Juliet smiled. She's going to change the world someday, in her own quiet way. Takes after her mother. And her father. Juliet leaned against him. The one who taught her that broken people can heal if they have the right support. Moonji was quiet for a moment. I still think about Minji sometimes. Wonder what she'd be like now if she'd lived. Of course you do. She'll always be part of you. You're okay with that? I'm okay with all of you, Moonji. The past and the present and whoever you're becoming. That's what love is, probably. He kissed her forehead. Probably. But life had one more surprise for them. About a year after they got married, Juliet started feeling nauseous in the mornings. At first, she blamed it on stress from her new job. Then she realized she was late. The pregnancy test sat on the bathroom counter while she and Moonji stared at it in shock. We're having a baby, Juliet whispered. We're having a baby, Moonji repeated, like he couldn't quite believe it. They told Melanie first. She was 8 now, old enough to understand what it meant. I'm going to be a big sister? Her eyes went wide. Really? Really, Juliet confirmed. Melanie was quiet for a long moment. Then she put her hand on Juliet's still flat stomach. The baby is happy, she announced. I can feel it. You can feel a baby's emotions already?
Yeah.
It's like warm. Like sunshine. Moonji and Juliet exchanged glances. They probably shouldn't be surprised. Melanie's gift just kept growing. The pregnancy was difficult. Juliet dealt with severe morning sickness for the first 4 months. Then high blood pressure in the 3rd trimester that had her on bed rest. Moonji took time off work to take care of her and Melanie, never complaining even when Juliet was moody and uncomfortable. I look like a whale, Juliet grumbled one evening. You look beautiful, Moonji said automatically. Liar. Okay, you look like a beautiful whale. She threw a pillow at him, but she was laughing. Melanie was the best helper. She'd bring Juliet water and snacks, read to her when she was stuck in bed, update her on everything happening at school. At night, she talked to Juliet's belly, telling the baby stories about their family. You're going to love it here, Melanie said one night. Mama gives the best hugs and Papa makes funny voices when he reads stories, and we have a dog now. Well, we're getting one soon, Papa promised, and you'll have your own room, but you can sleep in mine if you get scared. What if the baby's a boy? Moonji asked. Then he can still sleep in my room if he's scared.
Duh.
The baby came early. 3 weeks before the due date, Juliet's water broke while she was making breakfast. Moonji nearly dropped the pan he was holding. Okay. Don't panic. We practiced this. I'm not panicking, you're panicking, Juliet said, breathing through a contraction. They called Moonji's parents to come get Melanie, grabbed the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, and headed to the hospital. Traffic was terrible and Juliet's contractions were getting closer together. We're not going to make it, she gasped. Yes, we are. Just breathe. They made it. Barely. Juliet was already dilated to 7 centimeters by the time they got her into a room. The baby was coming fast. Moonji held her hand through every contraction, let her squeeze until his fingers went numb, whispered encouragement when she wanted to give up. You can do this. You're the strongest person I know. Just a little bit longer. I hate you right now. I know. You can hate me all you want after the baby's here. 3 hours later, they had a son. Small and perfect and with Moonji's eyes. He looks like Minji, Moonji said, his voice breaking. Around the nose and mouth. He looks like her. Juliet's heart ached for him. Is that okay? It's perfect. It's like she's still here somehow. Part of our family. They named him Logan. No middle name, just Logan Choi. Simple and strong. Melanie met her baby brother the next day and was instantly smitten. Can I hold him? Of course. Juliet helped position Logan in Melanie's arms. Support his head like this. Melanie stared down at the tiny baby with complete wonder. He's so small. And he's not scared at all. Just content. That's because he knows he's loved, Moonji said.
Yeah.
He really is. Bringing Logan home was chaos. He cried constantly, never slept for more than 2 hours at a stretch, and had colic that made him scream for hours every evening. Juliet was exhausted. Moonji was exhausted. Even Melanie, who adored her brother, got tired of the constant noise. This is way harder than I thought it would be, Juliet admitted one night while walking Logan around the living room at 3 a.m. We can do hard things, Moonji said, taking the baby from her. Go sleep. I've got him. You've been up with him for the last 2 nights. And you grew him for 9 months and pushed him out of your body.
Go.
Sleep. She was too tired to argue. It got better slowly. Logan's colic improved. He started sleeping longer stretches. Melanie went back to school, and life found a new normal. By the time Logan was 6 months old, they'd figured out their rhythm. Moonji handled morning duty because he was a morning person. Juliet took evenings because Logan was fussier than anyway. Melanie helped entertain her brother when they needed a break. We make a good team, Juliet said one Saturday morning, watching Moonji make faces at Logan while Melanie colored at the table. The best team, he agreed. But then Melanie's gift created a new complication. She started having nightmares about things that hadn't happened yet. Not detailed predictions, just feelings of dread about certain situations. Don't let Logan near water, she'd say out of nowhere. Something bad happens with water. They took her seriously. Kept Logan away from the pool at Moonji's parents' house. Made sure the bathtub was never filled unless someone was right there. Installed extra locks on the doors, so he couldn't wander outside unsupervised. 2 weeks later, they understood why. Logan crawled for the first time, heading straight for a bucket of cleaning water Juliet had left in the bathroom. If Moonji hadn't been right there to grab him, if Melanie's warning hadn't made them hypervigilant. Your gift saved your brother's life, Juliet told Melanie that night. I know. That's why I have it, probably. To keep people safe. At 9 years old, Melanie was already wiser than most adults. The years blurred together after that. Melanie became a preteen who was somehow both mature beyond her years and still very much a kid. Logan grew into a toddler with his father's determination and his mother's laugh. Moonji's consulting business expanded. Juliet got promoted to senior social worker. They bought a house. Got the dog Moonji had promised. Took family vacations to beaches and mountains. Had good days and bad days and everything in between. On Milani's 13th birthday, she asked an unexpected question during dinner. Do you ever regret it? How we became a family. Juliet set down her fork. What do you mean? I mean, it was kind of weird, right? Me just walking into Papa's office when I was 3, deciding we needed to save him. Normal families don't start like that. Moonji reached across the table to take her hand. Normal is overrated. And no, I don't regret a single second. Yes, it started in an unusual way. But the best things in life usually do. Your father's right, Juliet added. If you hadn't followed your instincts that day, if you hadn't seen what I couldn't see, we wouldn't be here. Any of us. So, I didn't mess anything up? You fixed everything up, Moonji corrected. You took 3 broken people. 4. Milani interrupted, pointing at Logan. He would have been born into a different family if you and Mama hadn't gotten together. 4 broken pieces, Moonji amended with a smile. And you put us together into something whole. Logan, who is 5 now and rarely quiet, piped up. I like our family, even when Milani steals my toys. I don't steal them. I borrow them. That stealing is not. Juliet and Moonji let them argue, exchanging fond glances across the table. This was family. The messy, loud, imperfect, absolutely perfect chaos of people who chose to love each other. Years passed and Milani's gift evolved in ways they didn't expect. By 16, she could walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional temperature. It made her an incredible friend, but also meant she carried the weight of everyone's problems. I need you to understand something, Juliet told her one evening when she found Milani crying in her room. You can't save everyone. You can't fix everyone's pain. But I can feel it, Mama. All of it. How can I just ignore that? Not ignoring. Just creating boundaries. You're allowed to help people without drowning in their emotions. That's what the therapist says too. Because it's true. Juliet sat on the bed next to her daughter. You know what your gift really is? Not just feeling emotions. It's showing people they're not alone in their pain. That's powerful. But you have to save some energy for yourself. Milani leaned against her mother's shoulder. How did you do it? When you were alone with me, and everything was hard. I almost didn't. There were days I wanted to give up. Days I cried in the bathroom, so you wouldn't see. Days I thought I'd made terrible mistakes bringing you into a world where I could barely keep us afloat. Juliet paused. But then you'd smile at me or say something funny or just exist, and I'd remember why I kept going. You were my reason. And now I have lots of reasons. You, Logan, your father. This life we built together. It's not perfect, but it's ours. I want to do something with my gift, Milani said. Something big. I've been thinking about becoming a counselor. Maybe working with kids who've been through trauma. You'd be amazing at that. Yeah. Milani looked up hopefully. Yeah. You already are amazing at it. Remember when you helped Keiko through her parents' divorce? Or when you talked that kid at school out of hurting himself? Milani nodded slowly. She didn't like to talk about that incident, but it had happened. A classmate spiraling into depression, planning something terrible. Milani had felt it, intervened, probably saved his life. Those are the moments that matter, Juliet continued. Not the big dramatic rescues. Just showing up for people when they need it most. Kinda like how I showed up for Papa that first day? Exactly like that. Meanwhile, Logan was growing into his own person. At 8 years old, he was the opposite of his sister. Loud where she was quiet, impulsive where she was thoughtful. He played soccer and skateboard and came home with scraped knees almost daily. Your son is going to give me gray hair, Moonji complained after Logan's latest emergency room visit for a sprained wrist. My son? He's yours too. He got the reckless gene from your side of the family. My side? You're the one who used to run an illegal business operation. That was calculated risk. Logan just jumps off things to see what happens. But they both loved him fiercely. Loved how he balanced out Milani's intensity with his lightness. Loved how he could make them laugh even when they were stressed. Loved watching him discover who he was becoming. On Juliet and Moonji's 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows. Not because they needed to, but because they wanted to. Because 10 years of marriage after everything they'd been through felt worth celebrating. Milani and Logan stood up with them this time. Milani read a poem she'd written about family. Logan mostly fidgeted, but smiled when it mattered. 10 years ago, I married my best friend, Moonji said during his vows. I thought I knew what love was. Thought I understood commitment. But this decade has taught me that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. Choosing to be patient when things are hard. Choosing to communicate when you'd rather shut down. Choosing to grow together instead of apart. He looked at Juliet with so much love it made her chest tight. You chose me when I was broken. You chose to build a life with me even when it would have been easier to walk away. You chose our family every day for 10 years. So today, I'm choosing you again. For the next 10 years and every decade after that. Juliet's vows were simpler, but no less meaningful. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect life we've created. Today and always. They kissed while their kids cheered and their friends clapped and Moonji's parents dabbed at their eyes with tissues. The party afterward was bigger than their actual wedding had been. Friends from every phase of their lives mixed together. Juliet's coworkers. Moonji's business contacts. Milani's friend group. Logan's soccer team. Late in the evening, Juliet found herself alone on the venue's patio, just breathing in the night air. Moonji joined her a moment later, hiding from her own party, just taking a minute. It's been a lot. Good lot or overwhelming lot? Both, maybe. She leaned against him. Can you believe it's been 10 years? Sometimes it feels like yesterday that Milani walked into your office. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Time is weird like that. Moonji wrapped his arms around her waist. But I'm grateful for every second of it. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts, probably. They taught us how strong we are. They stood in comfortable silence, watching through the windows as Milani taught some of the younger kids a dance and Logan attempted to juggle napkins. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Milani hadn't followed her instincts that day? Juliet asked quietly. All the time. I'd probably be dead, or in prison, or just existing without really living. Definitely not this happy. I'd still be working 3 jobs and barely making rent. Milani wouldn't have the opportunities she is now. Logan wouldn't exist. The universe works in mysterious ways. Or maybe it's not the universe. Maybe it's just a 3-year-old who refused to ignore someone's pain. Moonji kissed her temple. However it happened, I'm grateful. Me too. Inside, someone called for them to cut the anniversary cake. They headed back in together, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Because that was the thing about their family. They'd been built on unexpected foundations. A child's empathy, a broken man's grief, a single mother's resilience. But those foundations had proven stronger than anything conventional. Milani went on to study psychology in college, specializing in trauma counseling. She interned at a children's hospital and discovered her calling working with kids who'd experienced loss. I get it, she told Juliet during a visit home. I get what it's like to feel everything so intensely that it hurts. And I get what it's like to find healing in unexpected places. That's what I want to give these kids. Hope that things can get better. Logan surprisingly became interested in social justice work. After volunteering at one of Juliet's events, he decided he wanted to be a lawyer who helped families navigate the system. Like you and Mama had to do when that deadbeat tried to take custody of Milani, he explained to Moonji. I want to make sure kids end up with the parents who actually love them, not just the ones biology says they should be with. Moonji couldn't have been prouder. On what would have been Minji's 20th birthday, Moonji visited her grave with Juliet and the kids. It was something they did every year, not in sadness, but in remembrance. I tell her about you guys, Moonji admitted to Milani and Logan as they placed flowers on the headstone. About how you're both growing up. About our family. I think she'd be happy I found happiness again. She'd definitely be happy, Milani said with certainty. I can feel it, kind of, like an approval from somewhere far away. Your gift is getting really specific, Logan teased. Shut up. I'm having a moment. They laughed because that was okay too. Honoring the past didn't mean drowning in grief. That evening, back at home, they looked through old photos. Pictures of Milani at 3, tiny and determined. Pictures of Moonji in those early days, when sadness still lived in his eyes. Pictures of Juliet looking exhausted but hopeful. Pictures of Logan as a baby, then a toddler, then the kid he was now. "We should take a new family photo," Logan suggested. "For the wall." They did. All four of them cramped onto the couch, laughing as the timer counted down. The picture captured them perfectly, imperfect, genuine, completely themselves. Moonji got it framed and hung it in the living room next to the drawing Milani had made as a child. The one that said, "Mama, Papa Moonji me." "We've come a long way from that drawing," Juliet observed. "But the feeling's the same," Moonji said. "Family.
Love.
Home." 20 years after that first meeting in Moonji's office, Milani stood in her own office at the Children's Hospital, where she now worked full-time. She was 23, freshly graduated with her master's degree, and already making a difference. Her first solo client was a 5-year-old boy who'd lost his parents in an accident. He hadn't spoken in 3 weeks, hadn't cried, hadn't shown any emotion at all. Milani sat across from him and just felt his pain, his confusion, his desperate need for someone to understand. "It's okay to be sad," she said gently. "It's okay to miss them. It's okay to be angry that they're gone." The boy looked at her with wide eyes. "I know what you're feeling," Milani continued. "I can't explain how, but I do. And I want you to know that even though it hurts now, it won't always hurt this much. You'll find people who love you. You'll build a new life. It'll be different than what you had, but it can still be good." The boy's lip trembled. Then he started crying, really crying for the first time since the accident. Milani held him while he sobbed, and she thought about her own family, about how pain had brought them together, about how healing was possible even when it seemed impossible. That night, she called her parents. "How was your first day?" Juliet asked. "Hard. Good. Important." Milani paused. "I helped a kid today. Really helped him. And I thought about how you and Papa and me, how we're proof that broken things can be fixed." "You sound like your father," Moonji said. He was on speaker now. "Good. He's pretty smart." "She gets her humility from me, though," Juliet joked. They talked for another hour about nothing and everything. About Logan's latest soccer game. About Juliet's promotion. About Moonji's plans to fully retire next year. About family dinner on Sunday. After they hung up, Milani sat in her apartment and thought about the title that had started this whole story. Poor maid's toddler kept stalking the Korean Mafia Don. The reason will shatter your heart. The reason wasn't what people would expect. Not danger or drama or secrets. Just a child who felt someone else's pain and refused to walk away. Just a man who'd forgotten how to hope until hope came to him in tiny, 3-year-old form. Just a mother who took a chance on something that seemed impossible. The reason that would shatter your heart was simple, really. It was that love, real, transformative love, could come from the most unexpected places. That healing was possible even after devastating loss. That family wasn't just about biology or tradition, or doing things the right way. It was about showing up for each other, over and over, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Milani picked up her phone and texted the family group chat. "Love you guys. Thanks for being the best unexpected family ever." Logan responded immediately with a string of emojis that made no sense. Juliet sent back a heart. Moonji wrote, "We love you too, sweetheart. You saved us all, you know." But Milani knew better. They'd saved each other. That's how the best families worked. Somewhere across the city, Moonji set down his phone and looked at Juliet. They were older now, him pushing 53, her right behind him, but the way he looked at her hadn't changed. "She's going to change the world," he said. "She already is," Juliet replied. "One broken heart at a time." Logan wandered in, now 15 and all gangly limbs. "Are you guys being sappy again?" "Always," they chorused in unison. He rolled his eyes but smiled. "Good. Don't ever stop." That was the thing about their family. They'd been forged in grief and healed through love. They'd faced custody battles and medical scares and all the normal chaos of life. But they'd done it together. And 20 years after a 3-year-old girl decided a sad stranger needed her help, they were still together, still choosing each other, still proving that the best families weren't the ones that looked perfect from the outside, but the ones that fought for each other on the inside. The reason that would shatter your heart was this. Sometimes the people who need us most are complete strangers. Sometimes our purpose finds us when we're barely old enough to walk. Sometimes the family we build is stronger than the one we're born into. And sometimes, just sometimes, a little girl's empathy can save more than one life. It can save 3,
4.
however many hearts she touches along the way. That was Milani's gift. Not just feeling emotions, but transforming them. Turning pain into healing. Turning loss into hope. Turning broken strangers into forever families. And that was worth everything. So there's the whole story of how a maid's toddler ended up stalking a mafia don and somehow created the most beautiful family you've ever seen. If you loved this and want more stories that'll hit you right in the feelings, drop a like right now and hit that subscribe button. We got plenty more where this came from. See you in our next one.